Coming up on today's Wild West, we'll celebrate Shoshone and Arapaho culture in Lander, Wyoming, where we'll spend the night in a historic flour mill. We'll visit the Wind River Mountain Gold Rush ghost town of South Pass City.
If someone were to come back in a time machine, they would recognize this town.
Plus, we'll go riding at Montana's historic Sweetgrass Ranch, and you'll meet the acclaimed Wyoming sculptor preserving Native history in bronze. Another exciting episode of today's Wild West is next. The Wild West. It's still out there. And we'll show you how to find it. This is today's Wild West. It's a summer evening in Lander, Wyoming, where the Eagle Spirit dancers are celebrating and sharing their culture. The Museum of the American West.
The power of the drum. That drum has a spirit. That drum is good medicine.
Every Wednesday evening in the summer, Shoshone and Arapaho group members proudly wear their regalia and perform the dances that are an important part of their tribal heritage.
Saw this as an opportunity for me to get closer to my culture, and that's exactly what it's done.
Looks like it's a good workout, too.
It is.
The native dancers are the star attraction, but during the evening, they share the stage and invite everyone, young and old, to participate in their own way.
5 daughters all dance.
Are you native?
No native.
Okay, just like to dance.
Just love to dance.
Okay.
I got the spirit in me.
We like to share this part of our culture, which is the powwow way of life.
There's even a competition.
Emma is a champion.
The Sacagawea Silver Dollar is awarded to the winners.
Emma is a champion.
The evening ends with a spirited friendship dance.
The old people tell us that when we are given the opportunity to share the gift of song and dance, that we should do so, and in this way we bring blessings of strength and happiness to the people.
It's a blessing, good medicine, just to be here, to soak in the energy, the beauty, and the spirit of harmony.
We like to break down the barriers, and we like to openly share who we are, to cut down on the misunderstandings and the stereotypes and give people the opportunity to meet real Native Americans.
Lander is an inviting small western town at the base of the Wind River Mountains in beautiful Wyoming, with a very intriguing place to stay, the Mill House.
I hear stories. There's so many people still here that remember coming to the mill, because back in the day, the mill was the town meeting space. Like, everybody ended up at the mill at some point, and everybody hung out at the mill. So everybody has stories about the mill.
Built in 1888, the old Lander flour mill has been transformed into a boutique hotel.
It took a lot of work to
by Jill Hunter.
I think the floors took the longest. They had to sand and resand.
It's not her first rodeo. Over the years, Jill has started, run, and sold several Lander businesses, an ice cream shop, a burger and pizza joint, and finally, a restaurant and bar. Starting out as a single mom with a 2-year-old daughter.
She was scooping ice cream. Now she cleans rooms. She's got good work ethic. She's helped out quite a bit.
She earns her keep.
She does. She's got an expensive horse.
Her last restaurant was right across the street from the mill.
On days where I was getting over long shifts, I just look across the street and daydream. I just love the building. And it needed a lot of work.
But Jill had a good reputation with the contractors who'd worked on her other businesses. Everyone was excited to be part of this unique project.
It's amazing. Some of this stuff that I have here is from contractors coming in and saying, hey, I found this and I thought it looked really good in here. And so a lot of the stuff in here was an effort by many different people that brought things in that thought that it would fit in well with what I was doing.
There's lots of cool touches.
I have a friend who actually takes down old barns, and so I basically bought all the barn wood that he had for the ceilings.
The original brick, an old graveyard fence, and a grain rake on the wall that was found in the basement, plus the wooden window sills.
That piece a horse cribbed on, so it kind of gives it character.
Many of the furnishings were discovered at local ranch auctions.
I'd be doing this all week, and then Saturday I would go to an auction. And so a lot of the tables, some of the chairs, the books.
With lots of money going out and none coming in, there was a sense of urgency to get the job done, and she did, transforming the mill into the mill house in just a year. But it wasn't easy.
During the process, sometimes it's really hard and frustrating, but then when it's done and you see it finished, it's always worth it. It's kind of like having a child. Yeah, you forget about the labor.
Now it's all complete, and a most unique place to stay, hosting about 15 people a night.
I love this building. This is my favorite. It's got a really good feel to it, and it makes me happy that people get to stay here and see it.
And during a stay, you'll see and use locally produced products like artwork, soap, and coffee.
I think that's what makes this experience unique coming to the mill house, is that you kind of get a real feel for what Lander is.
Among the art displayed in the mill house is the sculpture of Richard Greaves, who has a very unique home of his own. You'll meet him when Today's Wild West continues. They are the faces of another time, the people of a way of life that no longer exists. They are the Native Americans Lewis and Clark met on their legendary exploration of the then unknown American West, a people and culture from long ago, brought back to life by the talent of award-winning Western sculptor Richard Greaves.
When I get to meet Lewis and Clark, am I going to give them a scolding? Why in the devil didn't they bring an artist with them?
Greaves' home studio in Wyoming features a museum-quality gallery of dozens of his sculptures.
You can take that date and go into the journals, and you'll see where that piece came from.
Inspired by the journey of Lewis and Clark, a subject the artist has focused on for years, and first fell in love with growing up in St. Louis, where the expedition originated in 1804 and returned 2.5 years later.
I grew up right near the cultural center of St. Louis, which is in the center. It's an area called Forest Park. And that's where the museums are at.
St. Louis is home to a museum dedicated to Lewis and Clark that was first known as the Jefferson Memorial. As a teenager, Greaves spent so much time there, the institution gave him a job as a gopher.
That meant that I had free reign of the museums with no supervision whatsoever. I could get into the archives, and they even got Clark's furniture there. I would sit in his chair at his desk, and I mean, back then, you didn't have to wear gloves to touch that stuff. And here's this kid, free reign in there, oh my God. I mean, and by the time I got 15, I was busting at the seams with all this knowledge about all of that and touching and everything. So that's what prompted me to want to come west.
Long before, Greaves' artistic talent was clearly evident very early in life, and perhaps even sooner.
I started that while I was waiting in line to be born. I think you inherit more than the color of your eyes.
Raised in an artistic Irish-Italian family with Venetian roots on his mother's side, Richard still owns some of the work he created when he was just 5 years old.
So the theme is the same as today.
Yeah. I get a kick out of looking at them now.
The same year, he started helping his godfather repair the broken fingers of statues at the local church.
When they found out I could build that stuff, oh man, I mean, they put me right to work.
An uncle who owned a marble shop gave him small blocks of the stone to work with, and another uncle gave Richard sculpting clay from the local brickyard where he operated the kiln.
Take it home and sculpt things. I'd take it to my uncle. He'd stick it in the corners in the kilns and fire it for me. So I just been working on stuff forever.
Greaves never went to art school.
Well, not self-taught. It's my tribal heritage.
And never went to college.
And my sister, who came after me, said there were some drawings on my mother's womb. So how can you miss when you got that kind of good gene pool you're coming from?
At 15, Richard went to a travel show in St. Louis, where at the Wyoming tourism booth, he met a Shoshone girl. The teenager invited him to visit her family's ranch on the Wind River Indian Reservation.
I came up for the roundup, and they was to here to Fort Wasky, and so, I mean, that's it.
Been here ever since.
Yeah, yeah. See, a sculptor is different than a painter. A painter puts his image on an existing surface. A sculptor puts something in space that did not exist. So he has to be a builder. That's my inventory just piled up there.
Greaves can build most anything. His unusual studio is a rambling set of connected rooms filled with all kinds of tools for woodworking and other projects, including the restoration of the 1968 Toyota Land Cruiser he drives to this day.
I'm inflicted with a disease that I don't think anybody can do anything as well as I can. So I end up spinning my wheels a lot. Sometimes you're better off to hire an expert to do something. I stick with it till I try to get it right.
It was all once home to a cafe, trading post, and butcher shop, businesses Richard ran for years after he first moved to Wyoming, while working on his art late at night.
Yeah, whenever it fit in, you know, I mean, I've been doing artwork forever. Forever, that's what I do.
Victorian sculpture, Don Quixote.
This Renaissance man is interested in virtually everything,
I'm a bookaholic.
as you can tell from his vast collection of books.
Books are good friends. I mean, you can visit them whenever you want to. And every corner that you can store books in, I got them.
There are collections of masks and old-time saddles.
At one time, I had a complete collection of all of the military saddles from the Civil War to when they mustered out in 1942.
A certified marksman and hunter, Greaves can tell you all about the Wyoming pronghorn, which is not an antelope.
An antelope, to be a true antelope, they have to have solid hair. Our pronghorns have hollow hair.
Richard also owns a collection of authentic Indian artifacts that he uses as models for his art.
Are these real bear claws here?
Yeah, there's another pile of books right there behind me.
Well, it sure is.
There is so much stuff to get interested in the world, isn't there? Just everything turns me on.
What turns on the Western art world is his amazing talent. Greaves has won most every major award at the nation's top Western art shows. His sculptures are prized by collectors around the world, and his monumental-sized works grace art museums and other institutions, along with his own garden and courtyard, like this gold medal winner, the Storyteller.
I refer to them as the Bible stories, they're tribal Bible stories.
Featuring the very attentive children listening to his scary tales.
He'd blow his flute. He said that's what brought the spirits in. They gave him the stories to tell to the kids. And he told all them kids, you got to get really close to me and hide your face in my blanket. And when you hear them spirits come, don't make any noise and keep hiding your face in the blanket, because if you turn around to look at them spirits, they'll grab your head and put it on backwards.
It's all inspired by Greaves' love of the West, its history, and his neighborhood.
I just happen to live in the Rocky Mountains and among Indians, and that's the only subject matter I got, see, so.
Now in his mid-80s, Richard doesn't even know how many sculptures he's created, but this happy and contented man who loves his work has no plans to retire.
I've been really fortunate to be able to make a living in what I like doing. And not many people get to do that. You know, not many people get to do that. So I've had really a good life.
Hi, I'm Mark Bedore. Today's Wild West is in South Pass City, a Wyoming State Historic Site that's an authentic slice of the Old West. We'll show you coming up on today's Wild West. The old-time saloon piano plays again in South Pass City, just like it did more than 150 years ago.
If someone were to come back in a time machine, they would recognize this town.
Now a Wyoming State Historic Site, the Wild West mining town is home to 24 authentic buildings, including 3 saloons, with lots of fascinating artifacts.
We don't try to disguise that we use replicas, but if it looks old and it looks authentic, it likely came from this very town. Like the furniture, the bar, that kind of thing, date back to the early years of the town too.
There were 14 saloons here, where a few customers probably spent a night or two at the original Sweetwater County Jail. Not a place you'd want to stay.
Yes, that's what a real jail was like. And some folks are just willing to put it right back into use again today.
After the boom went bust, it became a schoolhouse.
Yes. Yep.
The town sprung up after gold was discovered in 1867.
This is the place, and there's mine workings as small as this that are in upwards of 90 feet deep historically.
At its peak, 2,000 people lived here in the remote Wind River Mountains at an elevation of 8,000 feet, 35 miles south of present-day Lander, Wyoming. And the site is just 8 miles north of the famous South Pass of the Oregon Trail, where you can still see the ruts of the wagon trains that carried 500,000 pioneers west in the 1800s. Back in 1869, South Pass City was the second biggest town in Wyoming Territory. But the gold strike that triggered the boom soon went bust. And it wasn't long before South Pass City was as deserted as it is today.
The boom quickly turned to bust, as it did in hundreds of places across the West. That surface gold, the placer deposits, and the diggings on the creeks usually dries up within a season or 2 or 3.
But thanks to new mining technology, South Pass City boomed again in the 1890s.
They invented this in Colorado in the 1890s, and it revolutionized mining because instead of throwing away your tailing after your first crushing, you could recirculate it over another piece of equipment and produce a concentrate again.
You could tour the hard rock mining operation that in today's dollars produced nearly $300 million worth of gold.
And I usually start with a bunch of ominous type warnings about abandoned mine sites.
The underground mine went bust again, then boomed again in the 1920s and again in the 1940s, before finally shutting down for good in the early 50s, leaving behind the last generation of equipment, much of it operable.
So now everybody in the mine knows level 3 has called. And then they signal what they want. If you want to come up, one more, hoist me up. And those golf ball sized pieces slide down the chute. They drop into a bucket elevator.
Wyoming State Parks offers guided tours in the summer.
I mean, this is great. People don't know what they're missing if they haven't had a chance to take this tour and see how gold was really mined here.
After the tour, you can wander the historic town. If you're looking for the Old West, South Pass City is the real deal.
And it really represents an authentic situation. This is not a reconstruction from the ground up. People are looking at 20 historic structures on their original locations.
Esther Morris, a justice of the peace known as America's first female public official, lived here. And there are homes in town that look just like they did back in the day, thanks to generous donations from relatives of the families who once lived here.
That's a family piece, too.
South Pass City is living history.
Still use that stove?
Oh, yes. You know, they'll be baking cookies in here next weekend.
That you can experience for yourself in today's Wild West.
Folks understand that, I think, when they leave this place, that that was the real thing.
Hi, I'm Mark Bedore. Today's Wild West is inside the historic lodge of Montana's Sweetgrass Ranch, a place of great riding, amazing scenery, and a family with a history that dates back to the Old West. We'll show you coming up on today's Wild West. It's a place where the world seems very far away. Those words are from an old promotional poster, but still ring true today as the horses are driven in the morning at Sweetgrass Ranch.
It just has a real sort of magical feel. From the first time I came, I said, well, this is where I want to come back to every summer.
Val Cravens has been coming to Sweetgrass most every summer for 30 years.
It's just a really, really beautiful place.
Here at the foot of the Crazy Mountains, about an hour north of Big Timber, Montana, and 20 miles off the nearest highway, you'll find a refuge where cell phones don't work, you can escape the computer, and discover a world of unspoiled country, great horses, and a beloved family whose roots here date back to the 1880s.
My great-grandmother came from New York City, and so many people came out to visit the ranch that they decided that they had to start asking guests to pay. And then borrowing on that idea.
It may be August, but it feels like you're coming home for Christmas when you arrive on a Sunday afternoon. The Historic Lodge is buzzing with friendly conversation as returning guests or those here for the first time get a warm and friendly welcome from owners Shelley and Bill Karosha.
The Karoshas are an amazing family, and you know, when you come, you feel very welcomed, and it is kind of a really big extended family.
Each week is a new family reunion, and a lot of guests choose to come at the same week each year, so that they meet the people that they've met here before.
There's great hiking, fishing, and swimming, but horses are the star attraction of this place, with all kinds of country to ride in. And since this is also a working cattle ranch, guests get to live the cowboy dream, working cows and driving cattle.
How was the cattle drive?
Great.
Yeah?
Great experience.
Yeah.
Glad I did it.
We've seen a bear and a golden eagle and about 45 elk.
It was awesome.
Yeah?
Really good, yes.
So, the back of Billy Bob, the front of Billy Bob. Am I going too fast for anyone yet?
Monday mornings begin at the corral with some good-natured basic training on horsemanship. Do's and don'ts, how to stay safe.
Never wrap anything, please. So, don't do this when we're walking through the trees or at lunch, because if he takes off, he might just take some digits with him.
Sweetgrass is wide open country, and riders can spread out and enjoy.
It's truly amazing. Like Pat said this morning, all we have is wide open space.
Whether you're a rodeo star or brand new to the saddle,
this is my first time riding a horse, so.
the ranch has a horse and a ride that are a perfect fit for you.
Wow. And they gave you a pretty one.
Yes, Blondie.
And off we go. The country is amazing. Wrangler Jake leads us up to the high country, up, and up a mountain trail, with a break now and then to let our horses catch their breath. It's not long before we reach a spectacular overlook.
The weather's perfect today.
Nearly 1,000 feet higher than the ranch below.
And you have some really good horses.
Mm-hmm. We've had very good horses, and we have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The horses do a wonderful job of letting people relax and really be themselves.
Oh, there we go, it's perfect. Awesome. That took like 6. Good.
The whole place is pretty relaxed. Rules are few, and the staff shares meals with the guests.
Staff, family, and guests are all family. There aren't any divisions, and sometimes it's hard to tell who's a guest and who works here.
It's awesome to work for a traditional family, and I really enjoy that part of my job.
What a view.
Beautiful.
And when the staff does have free time, they can saddle up and join the fun, like this happy group.
There's no other place you could work with like a view like this and then like have such a unique experience like riding horses every day. And
Wrangler Will Sogg leads the way, riding bareback on a horse that needed a break from the saddle.
This is my 4th summer working here, so I have to say something about how good it is.
These young ranch hands can all ride, and ride fast. Fun bunch to hang out with.
you get to meet people from all around the world. Like you get really close with all your coworkers because you're together all day for like 2.5 months. And so it's just something like that you'll never experience anywhere else.
People are drawn here to this great beauty and this relaxed environment. And then there seems to be a spark now and then.
And more than one happy couple has ridden off into the sunset after meeting at Sweetgrass Ranch.
A lot of marriages and weddings out here.
There are. There's definitely romance in the air.
You can spend all day on a horse, but there are other attractions as well. One of the things I really like about Sweetgrass Ranch is its rustic main lodge. Really adds to the Old West ambiance of this place. Built about 100 years ago, it's now listed on the National Register of Historic Places. There's a cool stone fireplace, a wolf hangs on the wall, and a buffalo watches over the piano, which a young guest brings to life. You can stay upstairs in lodge rooms that have their own Western flavor. Most guests will stay in a private cabin. When the dinner bell rings, we all head for the lodge dining room for delicious comfort food served family style. Because for 1 week, we are family, and a happy one at that.
And there's no faking it. It really is a special place. You're here, you're sharing their life with them. You feel like you can be a part of it.
Yesterday was our first horseback ride.
Yeah, how was it?
It was awesome. It was a little bit of an adrenaline rush.
It's so flexible, like with what you want to do, what kind of rides you want to do, if you want to ride or don't want to ride, and there's hiking and fishing and...
It's a pretty simple formula. Good times, good friends, beautiful country, great horses.
How are you? How was your day?
It was great.
And when was the last time you hung out on the porch and talked? Simple pleasures. They really are the best. Bill and Shelley set the tone and the tradition that the 6th generation of the family is now carrying on.
We're very, very fortunate. We're the luckiest people in the world. We're very blessed with the country that God gave us and with the family that we've raised. And especially so many of them are here with us. They're continuing the operation, thank God.
That's it for now. We're back next time with more cool stuff from today's Wild West. I'm Mark Bedore. We'll see you down the trail. For more information on the people and places featured in today's Wild West, or to order show DVDs and books, visit todayswildwest.com. Funding for Today's Wild West provided by the Leggett Foundation and the Chuck Wagon Trail Riders Foundation.